we go. So actually the inspiration for this track 909 came from wanting to experiment with like really characteristic 909 kicks like you'll hear in Fisher tracks and really big in tech house, and really to get that sound like that signature tech house kick sound that just sounds really just dirty and gives you a stank face. What it is, it's saturation. So layering up your kick samples with lots of saturation will give that kick a lot more character in the mids and the top end, and really gives that groovy, just fills out your kicks a lot better. So that's what I experimented with on this one. I picked like a good little saturation preset for this plugin, Kick Tweak. Drum Bus is great at doing this as well, so gave it some drive and crunch and kind of just tweaked some things with my drum bus. Massive breath. Yo, Sketch, what up? How you doing, man? Hell yeah. Good to have you, man. Awesome. So let's see, and then also layering a top layer to the kick to give it some high end. Let's see what we got here. Yeah, so I just took a kick top sample, filtered out the low end of it. Looks like I put a little bit of reverb just to kind of give a little bit of a room ambience in there, but it's one of those things that's not really noticeable. Just more for the character of it. Whoop. So together we have this. That just helps the kick kind of poke through the mix a little bit. Sick. All right. Forever. What up, Gandalf? Up in here. Thanks for joining us. Moving down, let's check out these house stabs I used before the drop. I think I just used a sample but then retuned them. Found some rave stabs I like. Yeah. Yep, so just tuning those to where they needed to go. Been using Camel Crusher a lot. Y'all look at this shit. So the new Apple update makes it to where you can't use Camel Crusher anymore, which is extremely disappointing. But if you go down to here and you have your favorite presets that you use all the time, you can hack them and get them here. Or if you open up this little tab, you can poke around with this guy until you figure out what you need to do to get it the way you liked it before. Use a little bit of a transient master on here. This is great for making samples or anything really, just punchier, snappier. That's a great transient shaper. Got a little bit of OTT to kind of boost up the high end on that. Yep, just gives it a quality that I liked for this one. A little bit of delay and reverb. Sweet. Thank you, Clay. These vocals are really interesting. This is, I think, the first time I used my own vocals on a track before. I had a little hook in my head, and I was like, you know what? I'm tired of like looking for splice for samples. I'm just going to record these myself. I think the inspiration was that Get Low by Lil Jon. 369, that just fine done came to the club about 50 damn times. And so I did a house flip on it. Came to the club about 50 damn times. Yeah, I did, bro. So lots of processing on here. We got the main vocal. Came to the club about 50 damn times. So I did some tune it. Yep, just tuned it to make sure we're on the note we needed to be on. I have a layer. I'm pretty sure. Oh, what did I do here? I didn't use Alter Boy on that. I just straight up tuned it up a seventh to give it just some like wonky, kind of just weird sound. Kind of gives it more of a chorusy kind of sound. I liked it. And dude, a crap ton of plugins. Let's see. CLA vocal, great on vocals. This 2A. That's that. Let's see. So I did some de-essing. I found a tutorial where they use these. These are all Waves plugins, by the way. So honestly, you could do the. You can achieve the same thing here with just a regular EQ3. They claim some of these plugins have a certain quality to them and gives certain types of warmth and stuff, but those little nuances are really here nor there. Took out a little bit of the low mids. Added lots of overdrive to kind of give it some hair. This is a washout effect track that I use. I wonder where I put it at. Yeah, right here. So as this vocal is approaching the drop, you're taking the wash and kind of bringing it up with it. And then so right before the drop, suck it all away. That adds some suspense and dynamic. After that, I took out some more OTT, a gate, so whenever the noise, you can take the noise floor out whenever things aren't really playing, which is good for removing low level noise. That more compression. I think I used that one more of just a makeup gain to get it a little louder. It's like we got some doubling going on. You could achieve this with like a chorus plugin. Some more taking out of the low mids. We got some delays. More reverb. Jesus, why do I have so much reverb? Okay, so one of these reverbs is sort of a slapback effect where I've got this decay time really short. So when let's see what we can, this sounds like fully wet. Gives sort of a small room feel, like you're in a small chamber, but then this normal one here is a medium sized reverb, and that kind of like gives it more of a medium room feel. Like a little bit longer, it's more of like your typical reverb sound. Let's see, and then, yep, so that's my vocals. Lots of distortion, lots of compression, lots of EQing out low mids. Let's check out this lead sample. People seem to have been a fan of this a lot. It was really interesting. It was the first time I've made a lead like this before, or these types of sounds. And I think they were really easy to make, but had a lot of character to them. Let's see. Yeah, triangle wave. So really what made this sound so unique was this downsample. I really didn't do anything well, there's been some overdrive too, huh? This downsample distortion though is really what made, so you're taking this and so I did that in different ways with these sounds. Yeah, one's got hyperdimension on it to give it some of that, but let's see, we got, yeah. So that's how I got that. Pretty easy to do, but yeah, that downsample distortion effect can make some really cool sounds. I just tinkered around until I got that. Checking the chat, everybody good? You got any questions or anything you want to look more into? Maybe if you came in late, want to take a look back at something else, just let me know. Keep my eyes on the chat. So a favorite thing of mine to do is on second drops, adding something different than we did on the first one, right? So you've got your baseline drop on the first drop. What are we going to do the second time to make it different, make it unique, and make people feel like they're getting something extra the second time they listen through? For this one, I love using analog laser sounds and just effects, synth effects. Walker and Royce, a couple of my favorite producers, and I love how they will use just synth effects to make really interesting combinations of noises. So for this, I've got a laser sound. So that is going to accent after, or yeah, the thing on the second drop. So this is the second drop. Yeah. So what was this one? Yep, noise top. So layering these together. And that just gives some top end to that effect. And I think all these are made with saw waves. Yep, basic saw waves. Oh, that's interesting. What the new version of Serum you can do is take these macros and you can assign them to different parts of your LFOs now, which is super cool. So if you didn't know that, take some time and check that out. You can map them on different axes. And so it looks like what I did on this one. So I took this macro right here, mapped it to the Y value of this LFO. So as the synth is going, you're kind of giving it different quality as it's going up. Uh-oh, I messed it up now. Yep, I don't know, whatever I did, messed it up. I'll fix it. Oh, there we go. Oh, what up, Grover? Good to have you. Y'all check out Grover. He's been getting sync placements, producing for his boy. Shit. Every time I try to remember names, I'm just in the word I can't. Brain's only got so much bandwidth. And then here's just, simple effects. You got crashes. You've got, oh, I did some vocal ads. Yep. Oh. Yep. Check out this effect. Yeah, this sample right here really made a impact on the. I like doing stabs and accents to kind of make interest within a song. So that's what I do with that. So yeah, I think that's about the, these other things are just downlifters, risers, reverse cymbals, crashes, and yeah, it's just to give it some ambience, texture, and things like that. So yeah, what we at? 23, awesome. Cool. If anybody have any questions about anything I went through with this track, let me know. I think next what we're going to do is we're going to bounce this out into a audio file, and then I'm going to show you on my mastering chain how I would typically master a track. And I think everybody looks like they're good. So while I'm doing this, let's oh wait, you know what? I already have somewhere. Awesome. Let's export this. And while I'm doing that, let's hit the chat and if y'all have any, talk about what's going on in dance music lately. What's happening? Got 11 people in here. What's the tea of the town? What's going on? Sick. So we'll just render this out and then we'll pull this into another project. Oops. Bro, I think I saw, if y'all noticed, Chris Lake and Chris Lake's girlfriend, Gita, was recently in that photo shoot with like Kanye, Floyd Mayweather, Kanye's girlfriend, Julia Fox. And I saw the picture and I was like, what is Chris Lake's girlfriend doing in this picture with all these people? Turns out that Kanye and Chris Lake, I think, have been in the studio together working on some music. So that would be freaking epic. About halfway through this export, y'all hang with me. Yeah, that remix was sick. Everything he does is like freaking gold. Oh, dude, that Noise You show is gonna be sick. I've been wanting to open up for him for a while. Borges is actually a really cool guy. When we brought him, or the Rounders brought him to Tuscaloosa, and he was really chill. Damn, yeah. Would love to come visit Hawaii, man. My boy put me on to Jack, who's one of our other residents here, put me on to something something, and his music is super fire. Oh wait, I think Michi, you were the one that got me on to something something. Sweet. We're done exporting. Let's pull up a new project. And just to give you an idea about how long this stream's gonna last, I took about like half hour to go through this project. The next half hour will be looking in and digging into some mastering things. We should be wrapped up by 7 o'clock. I appreciate y'all hanging in there and listening to me talk about production stuff. Thank you, Liquid, John Bruce, for having these things as well. They're gonna be doing these all weekend into the early next week. So check out the schedule. Also, other types of music too. They got experimental bass artists, rhythm stuff, all kinds of. I mean, I don't know. Is there a drum and bass artist I think in there too? So exciting. So we got our mix that we bounced out. We're going to pull this back in. I think we're at 126 on this. Yeah. So typically how I approach my mastering, this kind of boots up with the default mastering chain, and then I'll go through each of these. All right, let's turn this off. And I'll walk through each of these as I... Thank you, Dub Hype. 48 hours, bro. Sweet. So yeah, so let's we get into mastering. Let's see, what did I use? I'm gonna just grab a Chris Lake song to put in my reference track. And referencing is a huge part of kind of like putting your mix and your master into place and getting it to the quality that the people that are releasing and the people at the top are doing it at. Let's check out. I think this is what I used. So we'll dump that in. Also, we use these references to compare levels and LUFS signals, or amounts. So I think this track. Yeah. So our goal is to achieve the quality that this song is by using it as a reference. So the first thing we'll do, we import our mix. Let's check out where the levels are. Oh, wrong song. Yep. Usually I use analyzers a lot, and usually want my kicks and subs sitting around -18 for the mix, and that's a good starting point. So the first thing we'll do is use a bus compressor. You can use any kind of compressor you want. I've heard this one works really well. It's in Waves. Waves makes great plugins, and I've heard a lot of mixing and mastering engineers recommend this plugin. So I like it. I use it almost on everything. Oh, hey, Mom. She says I need to speak up. Maybe to pull the mic closer. So the first thing we'll do is, the really sweet spot with this bus compressor is bringing, shaving off about 3 dB. So right under this 4 mark. So we're going to go into right about here. We're going to have a very loose attack and a very tight release. So by doing that, we're letting our transients come through, but then our compressor is resetting as quickly as it can as well by having a short release time. So when you want a slow attack to let your kicks and your drums come through like they need to, and then you're going to have a really short release so your compressor is resetting as quickly as it can. I usually use either 2-to-1 or 4-to-1 ratio for bus compression. I usually kind of leave it on 4. And so that's the idea for that. What this is doing is really gluing your entire mix together. And yeah, that's why it's the first in my chain. What we got here? I think this SSL was used for some EQing, but that's really not important. And I'm going to delete this actually because I don't. Next, we're going to use an assortment of Ozone things. Ozone is a godsend for quick mastering. Yep, use it a lot. Use it on almost all my masters. Let's see. Let's go to the exciter next. I'm going to play this drop real quick, and then we're going to hit learn so we can see where Ozone is identifying the different bands where it needs to. Yeah, Sketch, this is like a template that I've made up for myself. Sweet. So right here, this is where Ozone says these are your divisions for your stuff. I've hit bands so we're affecting everything together. When using this Ozone exciter, I always put the mix to 50% because it can get really strong. Next, we're going to go through each band real quick and then listen to see, like, I think, saturation and excitement on a master is something that is usually, you almost want to do it to where it's not being noticed, but almost like when you compare them at the end of the day after all the compression and all the limiting and stuff, you can tell the difference between the two, but it's not going to be something that you really want someone to really be distracted by. So we're going to, as we listen to each of these bands, we're going to do it just enough to where we feel like, okay, I'm noticing that this is like, has a lot of saturation on it. I need to probably dial it down a little bit. I find usually like right around 4 to 5 is a sweet spot for me for like having saturation that's not really being distracting. Next band. We got a blown out low in there. Yeah. So it's something small, subtle. I've got oversampling engaged, so computer is compensating for that. I don't usually like to use this dynamics, but this is a multi-band compressor, and I'll show you kind of what I do instead. I don't really use this as much anymore. You can, it's got a lot of good functions in it, but I'm going to use a stock multi-band compressor for my multi-band compression on this track. Let's check this out. 6 reverbs on your master chain each. Love it. Yeah, so dub hype. I have a horrible habit of mixing and mastering at the same time. My computer will not handle a master chain right now while I'm running OBS and streaming, so that's why this is actually the proper way to do it anyway, but I have a horrible habit of, I have a mastering chain on my project. So the one we were working on in the first 30 minutes, I typically would have a master chain on there. My computer could handle it if I wasn't streaming all this stuff. Not to say that's the right way to do it. The right way to do it is to go ahead and get your mix down in your first project and really just making sure that you're not clipping on your master, getting the mix balanced, sounding exactly how you want it, exporting that and bringing it into another mastering project. It's like when you're sending your tracks off to mastering engineers, you'll just send them a mix that's, usually like -6 dB. That way your computer has more processing power to do a better job on your master. If you're sharing computer power by mixing and mastering at the same time, you're kind of compromising the potential of your computer to be able to give a better quality to your mixes and your masters. So this is definitely the better way to do it, is to mix, export that mix, bring it into another project, and master in a separate project. So we're moving on to the imager. So same deal. We went and I told Ozone to learn where the sweet spots of this track are, and so we're going to go to each one. I'm going to show you a little something about correlation right here on the right side of this imaging visualizer. So let's go through each of these bands real quick. And again, you don't want to put so much stereo separation that it causes your track to phase or it seems super noticeable. A lot of the more center that your track is hitting right in the mono thing, that's why your kicks and your claps and snares fall down the center, is because those are the parts that are going to have the most impact. It's okay to phase, you can find examples with tons and tons of bass music producers as well, where things are really wide. This is a rule of thumb. It's not a end all be all of, law, you know what I mean? So do everything with discretion. I just know that if you make sure that things are not out of phase and going down sort of the center of your stereo image, it's gonna have more impact on speakers and different clubs. If you spread things out too far when you get into clubs and stuff, you're gonna start wondering why. In my studio, my bedroom, it sounds really good and it's got all this dimension and it sounds massive, super wide. But then when I go to play it at any club, and they may have their speaker set to be a mono signal on both ends, every single club can be a little bit different, especially when you're working with lower budget dive bars. So if you want your music to translate really well with any environment, any circumstance that you might be in, it's just a better rule of thumb to me to make sure that you're not making things too wide. So a little width is okay. So we're going to go through each of the bands and add a little bit. But if it starts to be where you can notice that things sound really wide, the wider it is, the less density that it feels like it could have in the middle. So let's check it out. We're going to turn stereo rise on. I'm going to show you a little tip too. If you ever wondered what this +1, 0, and -1 means, this is your correlation meter. When things are in correlation with each other, that means that you haven't gone too wide with it. When I take this band and go all the way down to -100, which means perfect mono, you have a correlation of +1. That means you're in perfect mono signal. As you creep up with your band, you'll notice that this +1 will go down to 0. As long as your correlation is between +1 and 0, you are in phase, and that's like good. That's good territory to be in. Once you start going below 0 and going to -1, that means you're out of correlation and you're having phasing issues. And so watch as I bring the width from perfect mono to super wide, what happens with this correlation meter. Right here, we're still good. But if I crank this up, we're going below 0 and in between -1 and 0. That means we've gone way too far and we are out of phase and it's just garbage. So these tops are really wide already. I don't really need to do too much to the top end. Let's keep going. We're going to go down the rest of the bands. Really not going to do too much there. So yeah, like I said, everything is done extremely subtly, and because when you make the mix, I put some hats to the right and some to the left, so there's already some stereo width there. There's no reason to kind of crank things up with a imager and like make things less impactful and out of phase. So next up, let's check out. Let's do this vintage limiter. This is kind of acting as a hard clipper. It's got some different modes on here. Really what the thought of this is, when you're running mastering, if you spread your computer power with 2 different limiters that are running at about 50% capacity, the theory is that it gives you better quality. So I do a little bit for each of them. I do a little bit with this vintage limiter, then at the end of it, I do a little bit with my maximizer. Oh. It's vintage, bro. It's got different. It's actually, you got a modern vintage limiter now. So we're cranking down. I'm gonna go listen through each one and see which one has the best quality for this type of track. I'm gonna go with modern because it seems to be treating the kick and the low end the best. Tube and analog, it kind of sounds like it's distorting my kick a little bit, so I'm gonna go with modern. Next up, I've got this is a J37. This is a highly recommended tape saturation plugin as well. This is gonna put a little bit more saturation. It's emulating a tape machine that was used back in the day with analog tapes. And you've got a lot of different modes here. I like it because it gives an analog quality to an otherwise completely digital track. You know, other than my vocals on this track, everything else is computer generated stuff. So these analog emulators are able to kind of give back a little bit of just analog quality to your mix as you're mastering it. So let's go through. I'm gonna listen real quick and kind of show you a few things about it. Up here we got a couple different formulas. Let's see. And so what I'll do is I'll just go through each one. You can get through the specifics while watching other YouTube videos if you want to dive deeper into these things. But it's pretty much just giving you different, as you can see, these were different like types of tape saturations at different speeds. And then you'll use this to kind of making sure that in your metering down here that you're not going into the red and distorting your entire mix. So this plugin is completely destroying my CPU, so I'm turning that off for now. But the idea of this is just adding a tape saturation to give your digital track some analog quality. Next up, I have this little clipper. I like this. This plugin works well for me because when you've got music that has a 4-on-the-4 pattern and you're cranking your maximizers up, what you have a lot is when you have so much compression on your mixes hitting every quarter note, it starts to pump your music when you're trying to really crank it up and getting it to like a loud level. Using this hard clipper to me makes things a little bit, it takes the pumping out. It makes things a little bit more smoother, so you don't feel that your mix is pumping on every kick note on the quarter notes. So by what this hard clipper is doing is shaving off. The reason is, you're doing that because your drum transients are really big and your maximizer is responding to these transients that are poking out above the rest of the mix. So every time your maximizer hits those higher transients, it's pushing the whole mix down. So it literally is pumping your mix back and forth. By taking your hard clipper and cutting off the tops of those transients that are poking out, it lets it balance your track a lot better, and it's not squishing, pulling and pushing your track with every quarter note. So that's what hard clippers are really good for. Is really, again, it works a lot like a compressor, but shaving off the transients that are poking out, the kicks and the claps, and making it to where your maximizer can deal with the overall track in a more balanced way without things poking out and it have to go in overdrive to deal with those things. I'll usually go until it sounds like, this is like garbage, and then I'll pull it back and seeing like where this in the middle sweet spot is for not really shaving off too much. Garbage. So right up in there, just taking off the tops of the flattening the transients of those kicks. And yeah, I'm saving this for right now because, to be honest, this Pro Q3 plugin that I'm about to go into next is cracked from my friend, and sometimes when I open it up, it crashes the project. But then after that, we'll get to the maximizer and then some analyzer stuff, and then we'll be wrapping up. So I have this already kind of as part of my template. Crack is whack, bro. Stands for goat. G clip. I'll check it out. I've been looking for another hard clipper, Clay, so I'll check out G clip. What we have here is Pro Q3 is at the end of our chain. We are taking off everything that is ultra low sub frequencies that really aren't that important. So I have this right now at about 30 hertz. You can bring that up and figure out where, like, the low end of your track is. And I have a 24 octave cutoff back here. The main reason why I like to use Pro Q3 for rolling off your low ends is because it lets you use linear phase, which linear phase is, if you have like a stock plugin where you're using FL or you're using Ableton and you just throw a EQ8 on there and do an ultra low cut, it's not meant for like to be dealing with specifically low end, and you're creating phase issues with your low end by really affecting it like it does. Using a linear phase high pass low cut, its linear phase is designed to make sure that it's not going to give you phase issues on whatever you're trying to affect. In this case, we're trying to affect our low end, and it's going to give you more transparent low end. So you want to make sure that you're not creating problems by cutting off your low end, which you think you're like improving it by like taking out this low rumble so it'll work better with my limiter. But if you're not using a specific EQ that is designed to be treating low end, you could be creating more phase issues, and you'd be wondering like, why does my low end sound like it's at a slightly different note now, or it's the phase of it just sounds off. It's not hitting like it needs to. Need to use a linear phase EQ to treat your low ends. And that's all I'm going to do with that plugin right now. You know, everything else sounds great. So that's kind of just that I have, that's stock. Hell yeah. Appreciate y'all. Thank you, Clay and Meech, for coming up in here and keeping it lively too. Thank you, Liquid. All right, so let's get to we got 10 minutes left, so I'll blow through this real quick. The last thing we'll do is this is our last plugin in the chain right now. So this is the maximizers. This is going to be your final limiter. We're going to go through this and check out how far we can crank down without things sounding terrible, without it sounding too compressed, too sausagey, and you can still hear dynamics and get as loud as you. My rule of thumb is I'm going to get as loud as I can before I start to hear some like distortion within my mix. So we'll play it and take a listen. I'm gonna delete some of these plugins so it just helps with my CPU. Awesome. So we're sounding good and loud there. This Ozone 9 has a great IRC5. Wait, is this 4? Yeah, this is 4. And the modes in here are the best. I think they use sort of like 12. It's almost like a 12-band multi-band compressor. And so it's with these different modes right here in IRC4, it's looking for problem areas and treating them as you're cranking down this limiter. For my ceiling, I'm just going to go with 0.01. I've heard a lot of different things that I don't know are true or not. They say do it negative, put your ceiling at -1 because Spotify does this or that to it. I have analyzed dozens of songs from Spotify and iTunes, and a lot of people don't abide by that rule. So my rule of thumb is analyze what other people are doing and then do that. There's a reason that their songs are making millions of, streams and hits, and their engineers are intelligent enough to know what they need to be doing before they're uploading their music. If they're not doing that, I'm not going to do that. I've read so much information about you need to do this, you need to do that, and then I'm wondering why is nobody else in the industry doing those things either. I'm just if I'm not seeing other award-winning producers do these things too, I'm not going to tie my hands behind my back by making my target -14 LUFS and my stuff be quieter than everybody else that is doing it. So that's my rule of thumb with that. And so nice, we have a loud mix. We're running out of CPU. We got about 8 more minutes. The last thing I will check out is my analyzer group. I have this, which is kind of like locked on to everything that I do. Let me check the producer. So my analyzer group. First thing I'm going to do is after I've mastered this whole thing, I've got my chain put in. Things are how I like them. I'm going to see what my balance looks like. Tonal balance is pretty much a EQ curve where you try to match to what the specific genre that you're doing. So, I mean, you could use several. The range for pop might be a little smaller than the range for EDM because different genres of EDM may have different varying amounts of pop and hip hop are usually a little bit more targeted. So I might use this one for right now. So what this is telling me right now is that I've got a really strong high end. I think this is probably the 6,000 hertz is probably from some hi-hats. So I'll go back and I'll take a look. again, this is not an end all be all of like things. So just because this is really lacking in the 2000 hertz doesn't mean I need to go and put an EQ and just crank that thing up because the song might not call for it. What it does do is show you things that you might need to go back and take a second look at. If your low end is extremely strong and maybe it was something that you didn't heard, you can use this plugin to figure out, are there things with my mix that I need to go and take a second look at. You may not need to fix anything, but it's a tool that helps you visualize things and perceive and kind of look at things in another way to see if you need to go back and make adjustments. I'll use a spectrum analyzer just to see like where my low end is hitting. If once my track's balanced, I'll crank it up to where my low end. I like to go to -6 with my kick low ends and my subs. That just seems to be where everybody else's theirs is landing as well. When you go and you analyze these things, let's take a look at this Chris Slate track and. See his kick and his bass. They're right at reaching this -6 line. So that's the target that I'm going to have my music make, because I want my music to sound just as good as Chris Slate's does. I'm going to do the same thing that him as an engineer or his mastering engineers are doing as well. So I might be able to crank down on this maximizer a little more to reach that -6. And that's close enough. I'm not using analog gear, so I'm not ever going to be able to achieve that level until someone has analog gear. So the last thing we're going to do is check our LUFS. A good target with LUFS levels are between, everybody will say something different. The textbooks say -14. To me, that's like classical music loudness. Like, it's not loud at all. That's recordings in the 60s loud. Nowadays, I've seen things go even like in electronic music, LUFS levels reaches -4, which is way louder than any professional engineer would tell you to. But I've analyzed Millennium songs and I've seen it, and however they make them get that loud is amazing. But I try to shoot for -6 and between -7, -6.5, and 6. If I'm within that range, to me, and it sounds just as loud as the other tracks that I'm analyzing and comparing it to, and I'm happy with that. Sweet. So I'm just under -6, give or take. So that's usually typically what, is good with me. Where are we at? We got 2 minutes left, so this is perfect timing. So that's we've recorded this as well, so if you want to go back and dig into any of these things later on, you're more than welcome to. Just see like what the specific plugins I'm using, maybe a little bit of things that I've said about them. But this is typically how I would do a rough master on a track. Of course, I would take way longer than 30 minutes to go through things, so I really did blow through a lot of these concepts really quickly. I'd be checking a lot of other things. But that's a rough overview of like how I would typically approach something like that. Let's see. Yeah. So, does anybody have any questions? I know there's sort of a delay, so I don't want to be sitting here and like in silence for 20 seconds before anyone might have a question. But if you do, hit me up on Instagram, DM me. I'm always super welcoming to questions, and if you have anything, just if you have any questions about the chains, if you have any questions about anything that was talked about tonight, anybody is welcome to hit my DM and talk with me. I'm very friendly, and so let's talk production stuff. It's fun. So awesome. Well, John Bruce, thank you for putting these on. I'm super stoked to be here. It's always fun to try to give info as much as I take it in as well. So good luck to the rest of the streams. Again, my name is Zewmob. Give me a follow. If you have any questions about any of these things, hit my line. I'm always open to going further into things. Awesome. Alrighty, well, we've reached 7 o'clock. This has been really fun. And be on the lookout for my new tune. 909 is coming out on Snack Time Records, which is Nico the Kid's label, and we've been working on getting a release plan for it. So hopefully we'll see it in the next few months. Y'all have a great night tonight. I gotta go get ready for work, and like I said, holler at me if you have any questions. Y'all have a great one.